Hey everybody, Tom Sega from Duluth Pack, and this is the Duluth Pack podcast, Leader of the Pack. We certainly have a very young leader with us today in Sydney Hansen, country music artist, actually coming to us from the Northland today instead of Nashville, Tennessee. So how lucky are we? So welcome to the podcast, Sydney.
Hi.
So what brought you back home here so quickly before we jump in?
Well, I was down there for college actually, which we'll get into, but I was just heading back because it was the Homegrown Music Festival. I had to play with my band on May 4th at Sacred Heart, so that was really cool. We were road tripping and then I jumped on stage basically. So
Perfect. Well, we'll jump into that. So don't jump in too far ahead here right now. So what
yeah.
we want to do, because you're a country music artist, and our listeners are going to be interested in how does somebody even get into the music industry, but we want to go back and just talk about, where did you grow up? And I'm lucky enough to know that you did grow up in the Northland here. And but for really, what was your childhood like and all those things? So where did you grow up for our listeners?
Well, I grew up in Piedmont area, but I've always been in Duluth. I went to Hermantown High School, and yeah, I've always lived here. And I started really growing in the Northland with music. I started dancing when I was 3 years old, so music has always just been a huge part of my life. And when I started dance, it just made all my best friends. Like I made all my best friends there, and yeah, music was always like my love from a very young age. And yeah, I just had typical Minnesota lifestyle, just hanging out with friends, going up to the lake, fishing with grandpa, like all the normal things that you do up here. And yeah, that kind of fed into my music for sure because I took all of my experiences from growing up in that environment and put it into my music. So
So through, junior high, high school, were you very involved at that point in the choir at school? Were you in church choirs, things like that, that got
yeah.
you the artistic, I guess, adrenaline going?
Yeah, I was in both for quite a while. I think in high school, I started to just do my own thing and start doing stuff outside of school. So I kind of moved away from that. But I did do a lot of choir. I started voice lessons in when I was 7 years old. So I started that very young because, well, my babysitter at the time actually noticed I sang in the car all the time, and she thought that I had a pretty good voice for a little girl. So she recommended that I go see her vocal coach, which was a blessing because I made a super early bond with her. And it was Dana Kopiski. She was my vocal coach, and she just really gave me the confidence as a little girl to kind of push forward and learn the basics and just get to where I am today, really, because she gave me that confidence and pushed it forward.
So when you were singing in the back of the car with your babysitter, what kind of, was it country music or was it just anything you could remember?
Pretty much anything, I think. I always joke around because my dad used to play dad music, I say, because it's like Nickelback, like ZZ Top, Daughtry, like that's what I grew up on, definitely with him. But yeah, country music for sure. That was always a big part of what I listened to as well. So I think both of those combined really gave me my sound now.
What made you gravitate toward country then? Was there
I
was
would
there an
just
artist at the time?
Honestly, I would just say like I always loved the storytelling and how it was more lighthearted and how it always just tells a story about like kind of the lifestyle you live up in the Northland. Like I feel like a lot of people don't realize that we have that type of lifestyle up here and they think it's only in the South. But yeah, it really spoke to me even at a young age, and I always just found comfort in it, I think, and that's what really drew me to it.
So, you grew up in the Northland, so I guess for the Southern people listening to this, so we actually sing while we shovel snow for 8 months a year.
Yeah, I guess. We do.
So you graduate high school, you know that you do want to pursue a career in music, but also college is on the radar.
Yes.
So you're in college, you're very young. Where are you in college?
Well, I did online courses through Lake Superior College for my first 2 years, and I transferred to Belmont University in Nashville this past fall. So it's always just been kind of in the background until this year because I just did online, but now I was in person this last fall. So it was kind of a different experience because I was doing homework and then I was running off to a show, like just so busy doing both things at the same time, but it's definitely paying off to do both, I think.
So you are residing in Nashville, Tennessee
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, I've been living there for about, I think it'll be 3 years this coming fall. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And going to school, studying, and doing gigs.
Yes, it's been crazy. And songwriting and being in the studio. It's just been crazy, but crazy busy, but also really fun.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. How do you balance all of that in your life right now to make that happen? Because it's more than just, I guess I said doing gigs because you're talking about also writing music.
Yeah, I mean, my days are pretty packed. I just have to kind of work around everything. I have a set schedule for school, and then I work in some songwriting sessions with other people. I found that I really like doing that down there too, which we can get more into. But I love co-writing with people. So we set up these little writing sessions, and yeah, I do that a lot. And then I'm also continuously just trying to put out new music. So I go to my producer with these songs that I've been writing, and then we take it from there. And yeah, there's a whole process with that too. It takes a long time, but yeah.
So you're gonna move to Tennessee. Your parents must still live here because you said you were home. How did
Yes.
that all go over with your parents? A young person, hey, I'm gonna move across the country, and not only am I gonna go to school, but I'm gonna be thrown into, with the wolves, if you will, into my profession that I am pursuing.
Well, they've been super supportive my whole entire life. Like, they're the ones that allowed me to get into vocal and guitar lessons, which helped me a ton just being a young girl. And then honestly, just so many opportunities up in the Northland. Like I've made so many connections with promoters. I was on Bayfront when I was just like a young girl. So all those experiences really pushed me. And yeah, everyone has been supportive of my move to Nashville. Even my parents, they definitely miss me a lot, but they still visit me out there. And yeah, my whole entire family has made it a very positive experience for sure. And always been hopeful that I'll catch a break hopefully soon.
So, Sydney, you're down in Nashville going to college. What have you decided to pursue as a major?
Well, I was contemplating a few things because Belmont offers a really good music program. Specifically, they do music business and songwriting. And I was gonna do songwriting and I was gonna major in songwriting if I could, but I think you can only do, actually, no, I was gonna do a minor in songwriting, but you can only do that as a major. So I just picked nursing actually, which people find it to be a little weird because obviously I'm nursing school in itself is very stressful, which I have learned, but yeah, just trying to do both. I'm
Oh,
passionate in both areas for sure, so yeah.
are you able to do a minor then in music while you're at school as well, or no?
I haven't done it only just because I'm just doing it on outside of school anyway, so I've just been trying to get that degree at the same time in nursing and then just doing my own thing. And
Okay,
it's going good so far, yeah.
good. Mo, you must be so busy.
Oh,
So
yes.
before we go into the music industry, you had just mentioned about writing sessions and you can get together with others. So first of all, how do you get into a writing group? And then
Yeah.
secondly, how does this work? I mean, for us non-music people, a writing session, what the heck is that?
Yeah, so basically the way that I have done my writing, I started off when I was about probably 13, just writing on my own, and that's definitely more personal. I do both. I write on my own and I write with other people. But I like co-writing because you can bounce ideas off of each other and it becomes like a conjoined idea, which I think is really cool because it can relate to both of you and then to other people as well. And I found people to write with just through different writers' rounds that I was at. I just met people that I really liked their songs that they wrote on their own. So then we kind of just combine what we both have going on and create something that we both love. So.
Are you taking notes all the time if some creative idea comes in your head for a theme of a song? I mean, how does that work? How do you even come up with something like that?
Yeah, well, I used to write in journals. I used to write paper with paper all the time, but that got hard because I ran out of journals all the time. So honestly, I just write down notes in my phone all the time. I write it like in the middle of class, in the middle of the night, like literally anytime I have a thought or idea, I write it down. And then when I'm thinking of writing a song, I look back at those ideas or I just come up with a new idea that's relevant in my life at the time. Because honestly, most of my songs are very personal and have to do with my life specifically. So, yeah.
And so what's the process then? You come up with an idea in the middle of the night or in the middle of class when you should be listening to the professors
Right.
and you write it down and then you go, okay, I'm going to go into a writing session with somebody and you say, hey, I have this idea for a song because it came in my mind in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Where do you go then? I mean, what do you do? For us people who don't have a clue,
Yeah.
how does this work?
Well, it depends on the process. Either I come up with the lyrics first or the melody. It just kind of depends. Or if I have a cool guitar riff, then I start with that and just build lyrics from there. So it kind of just depends. But honestly, I just take the words and I don't know. Honestly, writing is such a weird thing. Like you just have to learn how to really be vulnerable. Honestly, that's the thing about writing is you have to really open yourself up and that has been like one of the most challenging things because well also therapeutic because honestly I just go into my writing and I really let it all out and yeah. But anyways, back to your question. I just kind of take that technique of usually finding a riff or something that I like first and then writing lyrics off of that, or if I have some lyrics I just try to right from there and expand those ideas and come up with a full song eventually.
What in these sessions, is it you and one other person, or is it a group of people that you're all very creative and you're just bouncing ideas off each other and you try things? How does that work?
I usually just stick to writing with one other person, but I know that other people do like as much as probably 5 or 6 songwriters in a session, and I've been open to that, but also I feel like you get too many ideas almost. It kind of gets all jumbled up. So I just like writing with one other person usually or 2 other people, and that usually seems to work out pretty good.
So is there a lot of constructive criticism then that would go on, or you know, and maybe not criticizing, but giving ideas for changes to the thoughts?
Yeah, we just kind of collaborate to make the thought come out clear because we want it to be relatable to everyone and obviously not just to us. So, yeah, we definitely bounce ideas back and forth. And if one of us doesn't like it, we kind of try to find something else. So, in the end, we're both just really proud of what we came up with because we both really love the way it turned out.
Are some of the folks then that you meet with writers only, or are they also the singers or the band members? How does that go?
Yeah, so some of them are just songwriters, and there's a lot of that in Nashville. A lot of songwriters either just write for other people, they pitch songs, or they just write with different artists, and they still get credit for it, but they're just the songwriters, and they're really good at it because that's what they just focus on. But I've met a lot of people that do both as well, which obviously is what I'm doing. And I find it rewarding just because then once I write something, I get to put it out and perform it and see how everyone reacts to it. And that's just a really cool process too, just to have it relate to people.
Can you give us an example of one song where you got together with people in the writing sessions, it actually became a song, and then you are currently performing it?
Yeah, well, a bunch of songs that I've written in Nashville, I have put out, like Somebody's Nobody for Better. Those are like first couple that I wrote in Nashville. And then my newest one, You Were the Whiskey, that was the one that kind of got the most recognition recently. That was one that I went on that radio tour for. And yeah, so that one was really cool to write just because we wanted to write just a classic country song about love and whiskey, and then it turned into this really like pop country song that people just could really relate to, I felt like, and I've gotten such good feedback about that experience and yeah.
Let's talk about that. You Are the Whiskey, because I met you, oh gosh, it was a year ago now,
Yeah,
and you were literally heading out the next day
I
on
know.
your radio, I'll call it a radio tour.
Yeah.
And I believe it was that song.
Yes, yep.
Tell us how that works, because you were literally going to be driving from radio station to radio station to do interview after interview.
Yeah.
How does that all work? How do you get that all set up and walk us through that process there?
Yeah, that was literally the coolest experience that I've had probably in my career just because, yes, so we traveled from Minnesota all the way down to Nashville just for the fall. We were just gonna do that, but then we realized like, why don't we just set up this cool radio tour and really push this song and have a bunch of people hear it from different states that don't usually get to. And it was just such a cool process. We went through Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, Indiana. We went all the way down, Alabama, Kentucky. And all of these stations were just so welcoming, and I expected that, but I didn't expect them to be so nice about it and really believe in that song and really push it to all of their listeners. And yeah, I have a really cool story about that. So my friend who lives in Kentucky, she was just randomly in a subway and she heard my song and she recorded it. And it was just the most random thing ever, but I was like, wow, that is really cool.
So she was in a subway. Where was she?
No, she was on at like a subway. Like
Oh, a Subway restaurant. Okay, I
yeah,
thought on the subway. Okay, okay. And
yeah.
so you do you have are you doing all the legwork to reach out to all of these radio stations to say, hey, I have this single and it's launching and I'd love to come and talk to you? How does that work?
I had a whole radio promotion team actually for this. My producer set it up, and basically she just does this all the time for different artists, and she has the connections with these radio stations, and then she sends them my song and they basically have to approve if they want to spin it or not on their station. So sometimes these radio tours don't even honestly work because they sometimes deny the song or just don't spin it that much. But that's why I was so like happy with this because they really took the song and everyone seemed to really like it. So we just got really good feedback about it. But yeah, it was really fun. We just every single day we were in a new area at a new station and just talking about the song, and I played a couple songs in pretty much each station live in the studio, so that was also really cool.
That's awesome. And so how long were you on tour, I guess the radio station tour?
Honestly, I think it was like maybe it was honestly just like a week, but we went to at least like two or three stations a day. So it was kind of jam-packed and we just were constantly driving and then stopping for the night. But yeah, it was just jam-packed full of different stations.
So you have a producer. Tell us, I mean, how do you get a producer and what does a producer do for you?
Yeah, so my producer is Kent Wells, and at the time I had a manager that introduced us to each other. And ever since that, he really just took me under his wing and really guided me as soon as I got to Nashville just about everything because I didn't know too much. Like I've been in the music industry for a long time, but it's definitely different when you're in Nashville with all of this competition and all of the opportunity too that you don't even know like what to do with or how to get there. So he just really helped me with everything. I showed him my songs when I first met him, and you could just tell that he really believed in my sound and thought that I was unique. So he really pushed me and we came up with some good songs together too. And yeah, he just really helped me out. He gives me advice on like business moves because really the music industry, you have to have obviously talent, but it's so much on the business side that people don't really they don't really realize probably.
Kent Wells, he also has some ties to one big old name out there that we all probably recognize.
Yes, Dolly Parton, Dolly Parton.
So how did that all? I mean, how does he work with her, and how are those ties? And
Yeah.
have you been able to meet her through those connections?
Yeah, so he's been working with her for I think 30 plus years. He's been her lead guitarist. He plays with her on like the CMAs. You probably will see him if she's on the CMAs again. But yeah, plays with her all the time. He's also her musical director. But yeah, they've just had a close relationship for a really long time. And yes, I did get to meet her. That was about probably a year ago now, and it was seriously the coolest experience ever. She's so sweet as everybody says. And yeah, that was awesome.
In what context were you at an event, or was it in a studio that you were able to meet her?
Yeah, she was in the studio. It was before she was doing a recording session of some sort, and he just had me come in randomly one day. He was like, "Do you want to meet Dolly?" He texted me that, and I was like, yeah, probably." So I rushed into the studio, and yeah, she gave me a lot of her time too. It was really a cool experience. She was so sweet, and she signed all these things for me, and she gave me just best of luck to my career, which obviously meant so much. And she loved my sparkly boots. She was like, "Aren't you?"
Imagine that.
She was like, "Aren't you a pretty little thing?" That's what she said. I'll never forget it. She was just,
Uh, that's hilarious.
yeah,
You have a team. So tell us about your team that surrounds you,
yeah.
because obviously you said this is a business. Who's
Mhm.
on your team, and what are their roles on your team, and what are the expectations that you would have of them?
Yeah. Well, honestly, at this point, I only have a producer really and his team. I currently don't have a manager, and I'm currently just an independent artist, not signed to any label right now. So the team is kind of small, but the team is mighty because we're really getting somewhere, honestly. Like I am my own booking agent, basically. I just reach out to different venues and send them all of my information, and it's in like a professional kit. And yeah, it's honestly been going really well with all of that. And yeah, with my producer, I don't know. He goes above and beyond for sure of what a producer normally does because usually they just look at your music and produce it, but he has been willing to give me advice and giving me opportunities that he has with obviously all of these connections that he's made living down there for his whole life. So yeah, it's just been really awesome. And then the process within the studio, basically my team, I would say, is the producer and the engineer and all the session musicians, which has been so awesome to work with them. Because these session musicians, they've been on records like of Dolly's or of Reba, like people that he works with, and so many people down in Nashville that you would know the name of. And it's just awesome that they get to also be on my records. So that has been really cool for sure.
Do you also play an instrument?
I do. I play guitar. Yeah.
And do you play in the majority of your songs, or just in some of them?
Honestly, I play everywhere live with my guitar, but when it comes to in studio when you're recording, Kent plays the acoustic guitar just to make it he's as professional as any of those session musicians, so he kind of takes over there, but yeah.
And studio time, how does that all work? I'm assuming you don't own your own studio, so whose
No.
studio do you use? Do you have to rent space or time in a studio? How does that work?
Yeah, so you have to rent a certain amount of time, and the session musicians obviously have to get paid. So you just pay for a time slot, and I've went to Soundstage Studios. That's in on Music Row. I've done it there. I've also recorded at Dark Horse Studios, which was Kent's old location, but now he's in a new location right in downtown Nashville. So I've recorded in quite a few since I've been down there, but yeah, we just recorded it right in downtown Nashville.
So right in the heart of it all.
Right in the heart, yeah.
So Sydney, you talked about doing some, can I call them gigs?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So where are some places that you've played that we all may have heard, or if we traveled and toured in Nashville, that maybe we went out at night and saw different artists playing.
Yeah. So obviously Broadway, when you go to Nashville, that's the place where everybody goes. It's the long strip of bars, owned by all of these famous people that you hear the name of, like obviously Luke Bryan and Blake Shelton. All those bars are on the strip. And so I've played in some of those, but I honestly stay kind of clear only because you can only do covers in most of those. You can't do original music right on the strip. So I've played down there for a while now, but I also try to stay on the outskirts. So I play at this place called The Local, which is a popular place down there. And one of the notable places is Third and Lindsley. That's kind of a bigger deal. And that was for one of Kent's showcases he put together. And it was just a bunch of his clients that got to perform there. So that was super cool.
And so you generally won't do covers, you'll do all original.
Yeah, it depends on the set that I'm doing. Like back home this summer, I have some festivals that I'll be doing, and I like to throw in a couple covers, but for the most part, I'm just trying to push my own music and myself lately. So I've been trying to just push my own music and all that good stuff.
What covers would you play that we all might recognize?
Well, I love Chris Stapleton. I would literally love to be a female Chris Stapleton. So he's like one of my biggest idols, and I kind of form my music around his vibe. I love his country, bluesy rock vibe. Like that mix is just perfect for also what I'm going for. So I just love to do covers of people that I am inspired by. So I'd say him. I do Tyler Childers sometimes, Stevie Nicks. I used to do a lot of Fleetwood Mac. And yeah, just really anybody that I love and that is kind of in the same realm of music that I'm
I
in.
have I have to show you on my notes right here. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can see it. Whose name I wrote right there was
Chris
Chris
Stapleton.
Stapleton, because I was going to ask you a question because I believe that he started his career as a songwriter for most of his
Yes.
career before
Mhm.
he got into performing himself. And there's so many number one hits that he had written
Yeah.
over the years for other artists, and then obviously he's become
Mhm.
explosive growth and is everywhere now. Have you
Yeah.
had a chance to meet him?
No, but I would die. That's hopefully someday. Hopefully someday we can figure that out. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people go that route. I was even thinking of trying to go that route, just getting a publishing deal first, so then you're just a writer for a while and then you kind of make your way because you get a name for yourself that way, just writing for people and then you kind of break into the industry easier.
Sydney, tell our listeners how they can listen to your music, how they can follow you on social, all of your different handles.
You can find me at Sydney Hansen Official everywhere on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff.
Can you spell that for us so everyone gets it correctly?
Yes, Sydney, Sydney, Hansen, Hansen, official.
And if they want to just Google up different songs, what are a few that they're going to be able to find right away?
You can find Somebody's Nobody, You Were the Whiskey, For Better, Getting Somewhere Slow. And I think that's all that I have out right now, but I'm going to be putting out a lot hopefully soon. I'm going to be releasing a single this summer, and then I'm hoping to put together an EP with 5 or 6 songs together. So that should be coming soon. So they got to look up for that too.
So everyone should be on notice for it. Are you going to be playing gigs this summer in the Midwest anywhere? We have a lot of listeners in the Midwest.
Mhm.
Obviously in Tennessee when you get back down there, but are you going to do any gigs in the Midwest?
Honestly, in Minnesota and Wisconsin, I'm focusing on this summer, and I just have a bunch of cool festivals that I'm really excited for. And yeah, I'm gonna be up in Minnesota for the entire summer. So,
Oh, you are. Holy
yes.
cow. How lucky are we? We have the park down here, music in the park all the time. So
Yeah.
we got to be paying attention up here for all of our listeners. Sydney, getting back onto this. So I'm intrigued when you bring up Chris Stapleton and you're writing songs and you're getting together with writing sessions. How long does a song typically take to write?
Yeah. Well, honestly, it varies. Like one time I was in a co-writing session with this girl and we needed like 3 sessions to finish it, 3 separate days. And so it can go like that, or it can be done in 30 minutes, I think is the fastest I've ever written a song, and it turned out really good. So I think it just depends. Like if you have a clear thought that you want to write about, it comes out pretty smoothly, and yeah.
What makes you said that you have I think it was Kent Wells that said you have a unique sound. What
Mhm.
how would you describe to our listeners your sound, your unique sound that Kent Wells heard?
I would just say I have like a deeper singing voice than a lot of girls, so a lot of people pick up on that, and yeah, they just think I have like a kind of a bluesy undertone. I don't know. Some people have just said that. I hate to talk about my own voice, but
That's what we're here to do.
but yeah, I just say like a little more gritty, a little deeper than most female artists.
So far in your young career, what has been your biggest challenge?
Oh God. Well, honestly, I haven't had that many. Like, I've been pretty lucky, I'd say, but um I don't honestly, I can't even think of one. I haven't had that many challenges. Probably if I had to give an answer, probably just being a girl in the industry. I think it's like it's harder to get the respect, and I feel like you have to work a lot harder when you're a girl just to get the respect, earn the respect as you would. I don't know. I feel like it's just a little different for girls. And you see all these country male artists that you see more of them, I feel like. And then like for my genre specifically, I've noticed in like country rock, there's like a gap. Like there's not as many girls who are in my genre. So I'd say just that, I feel like is the biggest challenge, is just earning people's respect for sure.
Sydney, if there is any misconceptions out there of becoming an artist in your industry, in your early career here, what would you find that would be some of the biggest misconceptions?
I would say people probably think it's like an easy or like a lazy job almost. I feel like that's like the stigma behind it, especially for like musicians. But yeah, people just, I feel like they underestimate that you have to have so many factors that go into it to make it a bigger deal. Like you have to have talent, you have to have marketing, you have to push yourself constantly. And it's honestly a grind if you're really going for the full thing, if you're going to be an artist that songwrites and puts out their own music. And half the battle is being an independent artist because obviously you don't have the funding that you would get with a label. And yeah, so I just say people probably think it's easier than it really is when there's a lot that goes into it.
So if you're going to be playing some gigs and stuff, these are obviously generally your evenings are pretty late, right?
Yeah.
And so how tell us about the grind.
Well, typically my life has been crazy just because of school and music. So I just, yeah, definitely late nights and a lot of time spent working on my craft. I still do vocal lessons periodically and just constantly working on my voice, constantly working on what kind of sound I want to put out there, which has been a big thing for me the past couple years. I feel like I've really tuned into what my specific sound is. I used to just be pretty open to all genres when I got started, and then I kind of honed in on country, and then yeah, as I said, like Chris Stapleton like really inspired me to just go for that country blues rock sound that I really love. So, yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing, just kind of finding my way through as an artist.
How protective do you have to be of your voice from the amount of playing and practicing that you're doing, and how do vocal coaches work with you on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I really have to warm up before a set because you don't want to strain your voice. That's the biggest thing as an artist. You really have to watch out for doing that because it can cause like permanent damage and we don't want that. So you just have to really take care of yourself outside of shows as well and just learn how to properly sing too because you can just be blowing your vocal cords if you aren't. So that's why I work with a vocal coach. I work on just doing it correctly, making sure that I'm never straining because that's the biggest concern for sure. And then outside of that, I just rest my voice. I steam it sometimes. I have a little steamer, a vocal steamer, so I do that. And yeah, I just try to not ever like yell for a weird reason. If there's a spider or something, can't be yelling about it. You gotta be careful.
So it's funny, my wife and I listen to The Voice, and one of the things I hear the judges talking about on a regular basis is breathing. Do you
Mhm.
have to do breathing exercises, and do you work with vocal coaches on breathing?
Yes, honestly, singing is completely about breathing. Like, in order to have a really powerful voice, you have to work on that. If you want to belt, you have to work on that. And yeah, just finding even the right vocal tone, it has to all do with breathing. So, again, that's what I work with my vocal coach on. And yeah, it's a constant thing that you definitely have to hone in on.
Have you ever tried out for any of those vocal shows that are out there to try to get in the limelight?
Honestly, I have a funny story. Well, not really funny, but I have a story about that. So I did do an online audition for The Voice, but it was many, many years ago when I was younger. And yeah, I didn't make it super far just because I had like no interview skills at all. And I was just really shy. I think that was my biggest issue. And so yeah, I didn't go very far that time, but they recently actually reached out to me via email. So they were gonna have me actually try out again, and it sounded like I would get further, like I would be further in the process already from previously trying out. But I didn't do it because of all these commitments I have this summer. But I'm open to it possibly next summer. So we will see about that.
So what type of commitment do they expect out of you if you're going to, make it into that?
hmm Well, basically, for the audition process, it's very long. You have to audition through many different people. It's not just right at the producers. You have to audition with basically a scout, and then you go further and further until you finally reach in front of the producers. So it's a long audition process, and then you have to basically give up your whole summer. So that's why, since I had all these commitments, I just couldn't cancel on all of the festivals that I have up north and all that. So I wanted to stay true to that this summer, but yeah, that's just a lot of time really, and I'm sure strenuous and tiring and yeah.
Sydney, what are some of the goals that you have for the next year, the next 5 years for your musical career?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to find a label. That is currently the goal. I think that we were gonna try to shop my songs to all of these different labels and see if we find one that fits for me and fits for them and see if we could do that. So that's one of the biggest things because as an independent artist, you can only do so much, but a label would just really help push my music, help fund it, which is also a big thing because music is expensive if you're putting it out. So, yeah, just looking for a label really is what the goal is. And then I don't know, I'm just looking for some recognition. I would love to go on a tour someday with all of my songs. I think that would just be awesome. So, yeah, hopefully all that.
At this point, have you been able to open for any other artists?
Yes, actually, last summer at Bayfront in Duluth, I was able to open for John Party. So that was my biggest opener yet. And it was a really cool experience just because there were so many people and it was the biggest concert that I've ever done. So yeah. And also speaking of The Voice, I got to open up for Chris Crozy, who was a runner-up on a season of The Voice. So that was really cool as well. And yeah.
So let's get back to the label thing.
Mhm.
Do you have to like put on your sales hat then to try to sell yourself to a label and the songs you have already and what you think you can do for them?
Yeah, basically, you kind of have to sell all of the stuff that you're doing. You got to show them the right music that you feel is your best, and you have to kind of already have a brand for yourself because they want someone who is put together and knows what kind of lane they want to be in, because that's very important when you're looking at going to a label because they just want someone who's ready and can really be just pushed out soon. So, yeah.
How do you convince them that you're ready?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm a little nervous too, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like I am ready just because I know what lane I'm trying to be in. I'm trying to be country with a hint of rock and a little bluesy. Just I know exactly what I want to do, and I think that they would appreciate that. And also, the music that I've done within the last year has been just like in a different category than what I was doing before. I feel like it's much better and my voice has matured so much even in the last couple of years. So, yeah, I just feel like I'm ready, hopefully. So, we'll see how that works.
So how critical are you of yourself when you look back at maybe music you put out 3 or 4 years ago, and as you've grown, you look back and go, "Boy, I thought I was really good there."
Oh God, yeah, I am definitely very self-critical. I'm also a perfectionist like now, like with my stuff now. So when I look back, I appreciate it for what it is because I know that I was just continuously growing, but also I know how much I've changed in the last couple of years. So yeah, I'm definitely like, maybe I should take that one. I take that one off. I don't know.
Sydney, what project or performance so far are you the most proud of that you've done to date?
Honestly, probably weird to say, but when I just came home a couple days ago, Homegrown was just so good because I have the best band that I've put together now, and they've just really believed in me as well. I have a really cool band. It's Don Douglas, he's my lead guitarist, Jim Holbeck, Dave Patterson, Paul Jones, and Mark Wita. And they're all from the Northland. They're all from Duluth. So whenever I come back home, it's just awesome because they really believe in what I'm doing down there and they make my songs that much better. Like we were practicing and I showed my producer something that my guitarist did and like we put it in the song that was being done in production, the guitar riff that he did. So we're just constantly collaborating and yeah, so when when I came back here, it was just a really cool experience to have people that believe in me and believe in my music and we just have a really good band that we put together, honestly. And coming back home at homegrown especially, everyone is so supportive and they come out for the music. So they were really just listening. We were at Sacred Heart and it was just a very intimate setting. It was super cool to perform to everybody.
Well, first I have to tell you, I actually know one of those people.
Oh, really?
The drummer, Dave Patterson.
Dave Patterson. Yeah,
I
he's a
know
guy.
I know Dave. I've known him many, many years, and I didn't know until recently that he had stayed in music
Yeah.
on the side for for many, many, obviously many years. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting. For our listeners, can you tell them what is homegrown? I know what it is because I'm local here and you are from here. But for our listeners that aren't from here who may want to come, who are music aficionados and see homegrown next year.
Homegrown is just about supporting local artists, really, who have all of their original music. There's just a wide variety in the Northland, I feel like. There's country, there's rock, there's punk, there's polka music, like just so many different genres here that people don't really realize. And yeah, Homegrown is just a really cool time because you get to show people what you've been working on and they're there just to listen to the music. And I feel like that's when we really come together is when there's music around. Like in Nashville, it's obviously all around, so it's nice to see when you come back up here that there's a huge festival that just supports all the local artists too.
Sydney, if there's the dream artist that you could collab with one day, I think you may have mentioned it already, but who would that be?
Oh, probably Chris Stapleton, I'd say. Yeah,
Just a no, just a nobody.
nobody. I don't know. Yeah, he's just amazing, and I feel like that would be cool if we could collaborate. So,
Well, you're going to have to reach out to him and just tell
yeah,
him that you're the female version of Chris Stapleton.
great, exactly. He'll want to do it for sure.
So, what do you find, Sydney, that is the most rewarding aspect of of a music career?
I'd say putting out my words of what I've written and having that be taken well and being relatable to other people. And at shows too, I've heard people sing my songs already. So that has been such a cool thing because I never thought, well, I hoped for it, but I never thought that would really happen because it's just so cool. And at Bayfront, I remember hearing, I was doing actually a cover of Zach Bryan and everyone was singing along with me. And that's just such a cool feeling. So I love having an audience like in the palm of my hand. And that's what I hope to still create and get my name out there.
What advice would you have for somebody who is looking to do what you're working so hard to be successful at? If they're just looking to get into it and say, well, I don't even know where to go. What advice could you give them of what you've already learned?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say to stay resilient because it's a weird industry to be in, and there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people that don't necessarily support it because I've been lucky with my support system, but a lot of people don't have that type of support. So I would just say to be resilient with all of that and really follow it, your dream if that is your dream and immerse yourself in it, make it a priority in your life. And if it's really a passion for you, that should come easy. And yeah, just believe in yourself and keep going with it.
How do you define success for you in your industry?
I would say just kind of how I touched on before, just having people be able to relate to my songs. I feel like that is so cool. Like I've had people reach out to me and say that some of my music has really like made them happy and made a difference in their lives because they just really related to it. And I think just that's the coolest thing that I could have ever heard. And yeah, people just when that happens, I love that people can relate to it.
Do you have your guitar handy?
I don't right now, but
Because
I
I was gonna ask you if you wanted to play a little bit.
I mean, I probably could. I don't know where my acoustic guitar is right now, but
That's okay. We have a segment here we can go into, but I was gonna skip that part of it if you had your
oh,
guitar handy. Our next segment will be our packed questions segment. And Sydney, this allows people to find out a little bit about you personally. What is Sydney Hansen's favorite movie?
honestly, I'm a sucker for a romance movie, so pretty much any Nicholas Sparks movie that came from a book. So The Notebook. The Notebook. I've seen it probably like 20 times, so that's probably my favorite.
Favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Honestly, I don't even know. I love Kentucky, honestly. There's just so much like open land that you see as you drive through, and it's just a beautiful place that has a lot of cool things within it. I also love Louisville, where the Derby is. That's a cool place too.
I think, did that happen last weekend? Because
Yeah,
we're
that was just
recording this.
yeah.
It was. What is your biggest fear?
Honestly, I don't have too many crazy fears. Honestly, spiders. I'm afraid of spiders, to be honest. Like the smallest one you could find, I'm still afraid of it. So, yeah.
Well, you know what? We don't have a lot of that up here in the winter, right?
Not too much, no.
We're
No.
pretty good at that. But you're going to be down south because you're going to be this huge star in Nashville and have to take up residence there.
Okay.
Now, this one's kind of a loaded one. Favorite band or artist?
Well, if it was a band, I could say the Steel Drivers because that's Chris Stapleton's band. Or I love Fleetwood Mac, and then yeah, like I said, Chris Stapleton, he's got it going on. So
Yes, he does. He has a lot of hardware to go along with it too. And Sydney Hansen, what is the best piece of life advice that you have ever received?
I'd say probably just to stay in my lane and kind of focus on my own stuff because honestly, like I've went through some weird stuff with when it comes to music. I feel like some people thought it was like a little too different from like a normal path. So I feel like just staying resilient and staying in your own lane, and even when it comes to comparing yourself to other people, just to forget all about that because you just want to focus on yourself and your uniqueness and really thrive in what you're good at.
And Sydney, once again, give us those social handles so people can find you and listen to you and get all kinds of plays so you can make money.
Exactly. You can find me at Sydney Hansen Official, SydneyHansen Official.
Folks, this has been Sydney Hansen. You better go out and watch for her stuff because she's going to be a big name coming up soon. We're going to be seeing her label and watching her, maybe even on The Voice, as she said here. Sydney, thanks so much for being here. Boy, did that go quick. Learned so much about you and the music industry. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
It's all our pleasure. And folks, until next time, unplug from the indoors and recharge in the outdoors while listening to Sydney's music.